security health risk. It's all part of a growing epidemic, fat in America, supersizing questions like why are Americans so fat, and what brought the fast food nation to rely heavily on foods most developed countries banned decades ago.
There's a lot of innovation that's going on in the United States at all levels, whether it be organic or genetically engineered activity.
We begin with Monsanto, the former manufacturer of killer herbicide Agent Orange. That's the chemical sprayed through the jungles of Vietnam during the war with the United States. Agent Orange eventually produced symptoms like these decades later. Monsanto is now responsible for more than half of the country's food and produce supply.
I believe that food is medicine, and that genetically modifying the food that we eat is going to have a great health impact on us.
The United States also holds the record for the largest production of genetically modified products in the world. According to GMO Compass, 95% of American corn and 85% of the soybean industry is genetically modified. The ingredients in all processed foods contain GM ingredients. The grocers manufacturers of America estimate 70 to 75% of the food we eat every day is genetically engineered.
This is one of the most dangerous massive experiments we've ever conducted on our planet.
In the mid-1990s, the FDA and the USDA allowed genetically modified food products and ingredients to flourish through the American food supply and farming industry. Suddenly, processed foods filled with chemically altered ingredients like high fructose corn syrup, canola oil, and modified soybean hit the shelves of America's supermarkets.
When GMOs were introduced in 1996, 7% of Americans had 3 or more chronic illnesses. Within 9 years, that went to 13%. Food allergies doubled in less time. Food-related illnesses doubled between 1994 and 2001. Autism is up. Obesity is up, diabetes is up. No one is checking to see if the most radical change in the human food supply, the introduction of genetically modified foods, is contributing to these dangerous statistics.
However, statistics in lower income areas vary. According to a report conducted by Trust for America's Health, minority communities in the country are more vulnerable. In fact, statistics recorded in African American, Hispanic, and Native American communities are nearly double the rates of white Americans. Dr. Carolyn Alexander suggests the alarming numbers plaguing minority communities is directly linked to GMO foods.
I believe that these are certainly at the root cause of a lot of our children's health issues, in particular in low-income communities, because they don't have the access to real food.
We're feeding the products of an infant science to the entire population.
So if the food is slowly killing us, making us unhealthy and fat, why is it on our supermarket shelves? And even more important, why aren't GMO products labeled? Coming up in part 2 of Fat in America, we'll delve into those questions and more. Jahan Hafiz, RT, Washington, D.C.
And Jihan's in the studio with me to talk more about this. So Jihan, tell me about the link between GMOs and obesity.
Definitely. Well, in the story you heard Jeffrey Smith talk about how in 1996 there's a huge mass production of genetically modified foods, not only into the American food supply, but also in the production supply. And what happened was the FDA and the USDA did not test these products before they went into our supermarkets, which might be kind of disturbing to some Americans, given the FDA and the USDA is supposed to do these things before they hit the supermarket shelves. However, that didn't happen. So as you look at these different ingredients, high fructose corn syrup, modified soybean, these other things I talked about in the story, they contain toxins that the human body is not used to. So, for example, if you look at the statistics from when they were introduced, which is about now 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, you're seeing a rise in all kinds of health problems, not just obesity, but obesity is rather interesting because the percentage of obese Americans shot up by 90% since the introduction of GMOs to the American food supply.
Wow, so there seems to be at least a pretty obvious correlation there. And talk about obesity in America in relation to the rise of the GMOs.
Definitely. Well, in the past 20 years, 20 years ago, there were no states that had obesity rates over 20%. Today, there are 38 states with obesity numbers over 25%. So you can see the rate at which obesity has risen, and also lower income communities. You're seeing obesity rates just skyrocket in African American, Native, and Latino communities. Why is that? It's the source of food that they're eating, selective foods in selective neighborhoods. So as you're seeing these rates increase, what you're also seeing skyrocket are health insurance issues or health related issues.
Yeah, it's amazing how it seems like certain demographics seem to be more affected by all of this. G.M.O.s, I'm looking forward to the part 2 of your